because they did not change the biochemistry.
For the first time in history. Because biologists
구글의 인공지능 알파고는 당초 예상을 깨고 인간계 최고수인 이세돌 구단을 압도했습니다.
Humankind became more and more powerful. But the big question is, are we happier than our ancestors? This is not the end of the story. We are now accumulating so much power, we are now becoming the gods of planet Earth.
하라리 교수는 인간이 일궈온 문명이 도리어 인간의 미래에 암울한 그림자를 드리우고 있으며 끊임없이 신의 경지에 오르고자 하는 인간의 도전이 역설적으로 인간을 파멸의 함정에 빠지게 하고 있는 것은 아닌지 묻고 있습니다. 이런 문제의식을 공유하며 오늘 하라리 교수님을 초청하게 되었습니다. 자, 그러면 오늘의 주인공이신 유발 하라리 교수님을 연단으로 모시도록 하겠습니다. 여러분 힘찬 박수로 맞이해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
My book *Sapiens* tried to summarize the whole of human history from the Stone Age to the Silicon Age in about 400, maybe 500 pages. In this talk today, I will try to summarize the whole of history in maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, and even maybe just in one sentence. I'll make an attempt, or actually 3 different attempts, to summarize the whole of human history in just one sentence. I'll first try to summarize the whole of human history in terms of power, the story of power in one sentence, then the whole of human history in terms of unity, and finally the whole of human history in terms of happiness. So 3 different stories, 3 different suggestions about how to summarize the whole of history in one sentence. The first option, which focuses on the story of power, says that the whole of human history is about power, and as history progressed, as history unfolded, humankind became more and more powerful. This is the error of history, the error of humankind becoming more powerful. History is full of thousands and millions of events and names and dates and battles and kings. But if you look closely, you can see that through all this chaos of events and names and facts runs a straight arrow, like a hot knife cutting through butter, the arrow of power. And no matter what happens, as time goes along, so humankind becomes more and more powerful. That as history unfolds, no matter what happens, empires rise and fall, religions appear and disappear, but no matter what happens, humankind becomes more powerful. Because whenever humans discover a new source of power, some new technology, some new way of organization, whether it's agriculture or industry or gun power or nuclear power, they never give it up. They are addicted to power. And therefore they accumulate more and more of it over thousands of years. To give you just a few facts, a few hints about the immense power that humankind have accumulated over the last 70,000 years since we began to spread from East Africa. Back in the Stone Age, tens of thousands of years ago, the average person, the average hunter-gatherer, consumed about 4,000 calories of energy every day. Not only for food, of course, but for all of life's necessities. Today, I don't know about South Korea, but in the United States, the average American every day consumes about 230,000 calories of energy. Every American, every day. Not only for food again, Americans eat a lot, but not so much, but also for the car, for the refrigerator, for the computer, for the air conditioner, everything. 230,000 calories of energy per day. That's 60 times more energy. Another way to illustrate or to measure the increase in power of humankind is to just look at the population of the planet. 50,000 years ago, humans were completely insignificant on the planet. In all over the world together, from Korea to Spain, you had about 5 million people top. That's less than the population of Seoul today. Most of the world's population consisted of wild animals, elephants and lions and dolphins and all that. Who else populates the planet? You have the domesticated animals that did not exist at all 50,000 years ago. There were no domesticated animals 50,000 years ago. It's a new invention created by humans. And now they actually constitute the majority of animals, of big animals on the planet. If you take all the domesticated animals that we have enslaved to our own needs and desires, all the cows and pigs and horses and chickens, and put them on a very large scale, you will find that they weigh about 700 million tons. So 300 million tons of humanity and 700 million tons of domesticated animals. Who else is on the planet? If you watch the National Geographic channel on television, or if you read fairy tales for children, or watch a Disney movie, you might easily come under the impression that the planet consists mostly of lions and penguins and dolphins and whales and alligators and all these other wild animals. They're there on the television screen, but in reality, they have disappeared, mostly disappeared from the planet. They are no longer there. There are just 40,000 lions remaining in the world. There are just 80,000 giraffes remaining in the world, compared to 1.5 billion cows and more than 1 billion pigs. How many wild wolves are left on planet Earth? Less than 200,000. How many domesticated dogs live on planet Earth? Close to 1 billion. How many penguins live on planet Earth? If you take all the penguins together in the North Pole, in the South Pole, about 50 million. That sounds a lot, until you compare it to the number of chickens. There are close to 50 billion chickens on the planet. 1,000 chickens for every penguin. This is our doing. This shows us the extent to which we control now life on the planet. And this is not the end of the story. We are now accumulating so much power that we are really turning ourselves from animals into gods. We are now becoming the gods of planet Earth, and the very future of life is in our hands. We have so much power that we are beginning to change the most basic rules of the game of life. We are replacing natural selection with intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of a god above the cloud. Our intelligent design now controls the future of life. For 4 billion years, life was confined to planet Earth mainly because organic life, organisms, cannot exist in outer space or on other planets. To send a few humans to the moon or to Mars is so difficult because they need food, they need oxygen, they need water, they need the unique conditions of this planet. They cannot colonize Mars. But non-organic life, like artificial intelligence, it will be far easier for AI to travel to outer space and colonize not only the moon and Mars, but maybe the whole galaxy. So this is one story, one way to summarize the whole of history in one sentence. As history unfolds, humankind gains more and more power. The second attempt to summarize history says that as history unfolds, humankind became more and more united. This is a bit less clear than the story of power. Because yes, sometimes we see that humans are becoming unified, let's say when a big empire unifies a lot of countries and peoples under its control. But every empire eventually breaks down, and again it is divided into many different independent tribes and kingdoms. And similarly, a religion may spread over a large part of the world, but then usually it breaks down into different sects. Like Christianity spread over much of the world, but then Christianity itself divided into Catholics and Protestants, and the Protestants divided into this sect and that sect. So the story of unity is less clear. But if you look at history from the vantage point of thousands of years, not just a few decades, you see that over time, the forces of unification are far stronger than the forces of disunity. Tens of thousands of years ago, humankind was divided into thousands and thousands of independent tribes with very little connection between one and the other. As history progresses, if you look at history every few thousand years, you find that there are more and more links, until today the entire world becomes a single community, a single family. Today, the whole world, the whole of humankind, is a single economic system. There are no longer separate, independent spheres or countries in economic terms. Today, there are trade relations between all parts of the world. A war in the Middle East may cause fuel prices to rise in South Korea. An economic crisis in China may cause unemployment in Europe. In this sense, the whole world is now a single economic unit. And at an even deeper level, how we think about the economy has also become more and more unified. Previously in history, different cultures, different societies, different religions had different views about what the economy is, what economic rules dominate the world, many different theories. Today, almost the whole world believes in a single economic theory, the economic theory which we know as capitalism. Even countries which theoretically, officially, are not capitalists, like China, in practice, they adopt much of the capitalist viewpoint on how the economy functions. 1,000 years ago, if kings or chiefs from Korea and India and Israel and Brazil somehow magically came to a single meeting, they would have a lot of difficulty understanding the viewpoint one of the other, because they understood society and the economy in very different ways. Today, in contrast, if the finance minister or the chief bankers of South Korea and India and Israel and Brazil would meet for lunch and discuss their different problems, they will immediately understand one another. They speak, they think using the same language, the same theories. So the whole world is one economic unit. Similarly, in the political sphere, we find that the entire world is adopting similar political models. Previously, you had empires and tribes and city-states, very different political models. But today in the world, there is just one dominant political model, which is the nation state. And more, the political thinking of humankind, you have people talking in the same political language, let's say of rights, of sovereignty, of political parties, of elections. These ideas, these concepts are today central to the political systems all over the world. And most importantly, you can see the unity of the world, of humankind, when it comes to an understanding of nature and of the basic nature of reality. 1,000 years ago, people in different cultures, in different areas of the world, had a very different understanding of the physical and of the biological reality. Let's say that I'm sick 1,000 years ago and I go to see a doctor. So I go to see a doctor in Korea or in India or in the Middle East or in South America. I will get 4 completely different explanations. And it was not just these 4 parts of the world. Every part of the world, you had the local priests and doctors and shamans who had a very different understanding of the human body and of disease and of medicine. In contrast, today, biologists and doctors all over the world have roughly the same understanding of what is the human body, what is the cause of the disease, and what is the remedy. And I can testify for this from a personal experience because 3 days ago when I was very sick, I went to a hospital here in Seoul and a doctor checked me up and gave me antibiotics. I think that if I went to a hospital in Tel Aviv, back home, I would have been treated in exactly the same way. And just as the understanding of biology, of the human body is the same, so also the understanding of physics, of the most basic elementary forces of the material reality. 1,000 years ago, you would have completely different theories of matter and energy of the physical world in different parts of the world. Today, E equals mc squared, the theory of relativity and quantum mechanics are applicable in the same way all over the world. So this is the second story of history. The story of unification. As history unfolded for thousands of years, so humankind became more and more unified until today it is a single unit, a single family with internal quarrels like every family, but still a single family. The third story is the most complicated, but also maybe the most important. It's the story of happiness. So we can say, yes, as history unfolded for thousands of years, humans became more powerful. As history unfolded, humans became more unified. But the big question is, as history unfolded, did humans become any happier? Are we happier than our ancestors? We saw earlier in this talk that Americans today have used 60 times more energy than our ancestors, the hunter-gatherers. 60 times more energy. Is the average American 60 times happier than the average hunter-gatherer in the Stone Age? The answer that most scholars, I think, would agree on it is no. Why is it? There are several main reasons that lead scientists to adopt this view, shown here in the graph, of the history of human happiness, that whereas the history of human power is very clear, it's going up all the time, the history of human happiness does not seem to be heading in any particular direction. Yes, there are some fluctuations in human happiness, but we don't seem today to be much happier than in past ages. If you somehow met your great-great-grandmother from the Middle Ages and told her how you live and how much power you have in your possession, that you have mobile phones and you have computers and you have air conditioning and you have cars, she would think, oh, you must be living in paradise. You probably wake up every morning with a new song in your heart, and you just go through your day dancing and singing and very happy. But in most cases, this is not true. Most people today don't pass their days just singing and dancing. They are also full of anxieties and fear and depression. Why is it? How come all this power that we have accumulated did not really change the basic level of human happiness or human satisfaction? So one very important explanation is that human happiness, human satisfaction, to a large extent, does not depend on power. It does not depend on external conditions. Human happiness, above all, depends on expectations. You can have $1 billion. If you want $2 billion, you won't be happy because it's not what you expect, just $1 billion. It's not enough. As you look at the long trajectory of human history, the big problem is that expectations do not remain constant. As conditions change, expectations change. And as conditions improve, expectations increase. So yes, maybe you have far more power and far more money and more food and more comfort than your great-great-grandmother, but you also expect far more than her. And therefore you may be even less satisfied with life than she was. To give a concrete example from recent events, if you think about Egyptian history and you look at the conditions of the average person under the regime of Hosni Mubarak, the late president of Egypt, you would find that under Hosni Mubarak, the conditions of the average Egyptian were probably better than under any previous regime in Egyptian history. So you would expect that Egyptians in 2011, under Mubarak's rule, would be extremely happy and satisfied and would go dancing in the street, thanking Allah for the good luck they have in the Hosni Mubarak government. But as we all know, this is not what happened. They went to the street in anger and made a revolution and toppled Mubarak, and now they are also dissatisfied with the result of the revolution. Why weren't they satisfied with what Mubarak gave them? Because they expected far more than their ancestors. In the Middle Ages or in ancient Egypt, if a particular pharaoh brought peace and freedom from famine and freedom from plague and disease, then he would have been considered the best pharaoh in the world. But in the modern age, this is not enough. People want far more. To give another example, the extent to which people are satisfied with the way they look. In all probability, people today, you for example, you're probably far more beautiful than any of your ancestors because modern medicine protects us against all kinds of disfiguring diseases. Today, people mostly are much more protected against all these diseases. But research after research shows that especially in the most advanced societies on Earth, like the USA, like Europe, like South Korea or Japan, people are far less satisfied with the way they look than previously, or than people in less advanced societies. Why is it? Because their expectations have changed. 1,000 years ago, if I was a peasant in some small village somewhere in Korea or in Israel, then my standard of beauty was set by the other people in my village. I look quite okay, so I was happy with the way I look. But today, the television and the movie industry and the advertisement industry, the commercials, they pick the 50 most gorgeous people on the earth, the 50 most gorgeous people in Korea, and they constantly parade them in front of our eyes. And these 50 gorgeous people now set the standard of beauty that I judge myself in comparison. So I'm far less satisfied with the way I look than previously. So yes, conditions improve, but also expectations increase. And all the power of humankind, therefore, does not make us significantly more satisfied than before. Now, there is an even deeper reason for this lack of satisfaction, and it has to do with natural selection and with evolution and with our biochemistry. Biologists are now telling us that at an even deeper level than expectations, what really determines our happiness or misery is never events or conditions in the outside world. It's only events and conditions inside our own body, in our biochemical system. When I hear the news that I got promotion at work, then I have a rush. The biochemical system in my body triggers a rush of pleasant sensations, and I react to these sensations. Wonderful, now I'm joyful. But I really react to these sensations, not to the event in the outside world that I got a promotion at work or I won the lottery. And the problem is that evolution designed our biochemical system in such a way that it can never experience pleasure for very long, and it can never be satisfied for very long, because this is not conducive to the survival and reproduction of animals. Let's think about a different animal, not a human being. Let's think about a squirrel. Imagine a squirrel that finds a nut and eats it. He's very happy for 5 minutes, but after 5 minutes, he wants another nut, so he's again miserable. Now, let's say that by some chance mutation, this squirrel has a very unique quality. When he finds and eats one nut, he gets a rush of pleasant sensation throughout the body that never stop. From that moment onward, he's feeling pleasure all the time. What will happen? This squirrel will live a very joyful and a very, very short life, because he will never bother to look for more food or to run away from enemies or to look for mates. So this chance mutation will not be passed on to the next generations. The same thing is true about human beings. Like squirrels, also human beings, they are constantly chasing after more food, more mates, more jobs, more money, and no matter what they get, the biochemical system makes sure that they will never be satisfied with this for very long. So from this perspective, history changed nothing. History changes the outside world, the political system, the economic system, the social system, but it doesn't change the biochemical system, which really controls our emotions and our states of mind. And therefore, all the big events and revolutions of history, like the agricultural revolution, or the French Revolution, or the Industrial Revolution, they changed nothing in terms of the deep structures of human misery and happiness, because they did not change the biochemical system. But this may now change for the first time in history, because biologists are beginning to decipher, to understand the reality inside our body, and we gain new powers to start manipulating not only the world outside, but also the world inside our body. We are now gaining the power to start manufacturing, to start manipulating our bodies and our brains and our biochemical system. So some biologists believe that finally we can start really increasing human happiness in a systematic way by changing our own biochemistry. However, there is a big question mark hanging even above this attempt to increase human happiness, because when you look really deep at the human mind, you find that the problem is not just with our biochemistry. The problems run much deeper. That even when humans do experience pleasure, even then they are not really satisfied. Because the basic reaction, the most common reaction of the human mind to pleasure is not satisfaction. The most common reaction of the human mind to pleasure and to achievement is craving for more. Even at the time that I eat something very delicious, I crave to continue feeling and to eat even something more delicious. No matter what people achieve, their common reaction is to crave for more. This is what has been driving the human pursuit of power for thousands and thousands of years, that no matter what we achieve, we still want more. But at the same time, this basic tendency, this basic reaction, is also what is preventing humankind from gaining any lasting satisfaction from all its achievements. So, to conclude or to end this talk, we can say that this is not a very novel discovery. Actually, philosophers and thinkers and people who have been searching for the truth for thousands of years, from ancient time, from the time of the Buddha and Confucius and Lao Tse, they already knew thousands of years ago that the real key to happiness is probably not power and not unity and not even pleasure. The real key to power is to know the truth about yourself and about the world. But unfortunately, this is something that for most humans is far more difficult than gaining power. Most humans are far more preoccupied in the pursuit of power than in trying to really understand the truth about themselves and about the world. I hope that this short lecture may have helped a little to you to understand yourself and the world a little better. Thank you.
사피엔스가 사피엔스를 읽죠. 인간이 인간을 읽습니다. 이것은 아마 인문학의 본령일 겁니다. 오늘 우리는 이 자리에서 우리의 새로운 길을 찾을 수 있는 문명전환의 발상, 이런 걸 생각해 보고 싶습니다. 이 시간을 통해서는 여기 계신 세 분의 패널이 책과 강연에서 느낀 바에 대한 얘기를 하고 질문을 차례로 돌아가면서 간단히 하겠습니다.
제 질문은 이겁니다. 아마 읽어보신 분들은 대부분 다 어떤 생각을 하셨을 것 같은데요. 인간의 어떤 특징을 규정하는 이러한 의식에 관련된 이야기들은 사실 아무리 테크놀로지가 발달하더라도 또는 여기에서 이야기하는 어떤 여러 가지 생체적인 어떤 그런 작용들이 있다 손 치더라도 실질적으로는 그 의식이 존재하는 한에서 인간인 것이거든요. 이 유발 하라리 교수님이 계속 이제 그렇게 말씀하신 인간의 어떤 종언, AI가 인간을 대체한다 그런 말씀을 많이 하셨는데 저는 제가 볼 땐 인간의 능력을 대체한다는 뜻인 것 같아요. 그랬을 때 유발 하라리 교수님이 생각하시는 인간의 종언이란 뭐냐 그러면 제 같은 경우는 이제 의식의 종언이라는 것이 인간의 종언이라고 한다면 사실 의식이 지구상에 사라져버리면 아무것도 존재하지 않게 되는 정신분석학적으로 말하면 무의 세계로 가게 되는 건데요. 이제 그러한 것을 인간의 종언이라고 볼 것인지 아니면 인간의 능력이 다 기계로 교체되어서 더 이상 인간의 어떤 그 차원이라는 것이 의식만 남아 있는 그것을 인간의 종언이라고 불러야 되는 것인지 그게 제 질문입니다.
특별히 그 이제 사피엔스의 책 중에 이제 그런 부분이 있더라고요. 이 글로벌 엠파이어가 결국에는 세계 평화를 굉장히 효과적으로 이루어낼 수 있을 것이다라는 그런 파트가 있었던 것 같습니다. 물론 일견 동의를 하는 부분도 있지만 과연 그 글로벌 엠파이어가 있었을 때 이게 과연 세계 평화가 가능할 것인가? 저는 아니라고 보는데 여전히 그 안에는 불평등, 빅데이터를 소유하고 있는 구글과 애플과 이런 곳이 있는 집단, 또 그런 다국적 기업이 거주하고 있는 국가, 뭐 이런 곳들이 더욱더 강한 파워를 가지고 불평등을 만들어낼 것 같은데 이에 대한 생각이 어떠신지 궁금합니다.
Okay, regarding the question about empire, so this is connected in a way to the first question, because again, I think that the most important questions that humankind faces today are global in nature. Again, whether it's global warming or the rise of artificial intelligence, this is not something that any single country can resolve by itself. Even a big, powerful country like China or USA cannot solve these problems by themselves. They require the kind of thinking and the kind of sacrifices that as long as countries think in independent and competitive ways, it cannot work. If we think about global warming, for example, with future technology, I don't know. But with the technology available in 2016, the only effective way to stop global warming is to stop economic growth, and no government on earth is willing to make that. No government on earth can survive making such a momentous decision. If the Chinese Communist Party stops economic growth, they'll have a revolution tomorrow morning. And if the US president stops economic growth, he will be out of office in no time. So as long as countries think in this independent and competitive way, China versus USA, everybody would say, why should I stop economic growth when you're continuing to grow? So again, as long as you don't have a kind of, maybe not global empire, certainly not a global dictator, but some kind of effective global governance, I think is the only effective way to face these challenges. And I don't think that it's going to happen voluntarily. I hope, most likely, it will come as a result of some catastrophe that will cause humankind to wake up. I just hope there'll be enough time to do something about it and that it won't be too late. Just to try briefly to answer also your very important question about consciousness. And this is related in a way to the second question about empire, because when we think about empire, we often think about, the Chinese Empire, the Roman Empire, Genghis Khan. But the next empire might be Google or Facebook, a completely different kind of empire. In the 21st century, the main resource is no longer land, it's no longer gold, it's not even oil. The main resource in the 21st century, the source of power, is data. And data it's currently being accumulated and monopolized by a very few number of more and more powerful corporations like Google and Facebook. Facebook, for example, if it wants, can decide the US elections. Because in the US elections, maybe the most important piece of information for the different parties is to identify who are the floating voters. Facebook knows the political opinions of tens of millions of Americans. It knows exactly who the floating voters are, and it even knows what Hillary Clinton needs to say in order to sway these voters in her favor and win the election. I don't know if Facebook is leveraging this immense power in some way, but if it wants to, it can. So in this sense, these corporations might be the next empire, which will be established not by a war of conquest, but by us giving our data for free to Google and Facebook and Microsoft and Apple. And this brings me to the question of consciousness. Because these corporations, which are now creating immense databases and more and more powerful algorithms and artificial intelligence, authority may shift away from human beings to these algorithms and big data systems and AI. The really disturbing thing about all this is that whereas human beings have consciousness, as far as we know, AI has absolutely zero consciousness, no consciousness whatsoever. There is an amazing advance in computer intelligence, but zero advance in computer consciousness. Computers have no feelings, no emotions, they don't sense anything. There is a danger in this, that after millions of years, when the dominant beings on the planet, both human beings and other animals like elephants and dolphins, the dominant beings were conscious beings, now dominance will pass to non-conscious but highly intelligent beings. So the very trajectory of life will move in a very different direction, and instead of a development of consciousness, what we will have is disappearance of consciousness and only development of intelligence. And intelligence may spread from planet Earth to other planets, to the rest of the galaxy, but without consciousness. And this raises, of course, the big philosophical question of what is more important, consciousness or intelligence. Until today, this was a hypothetical question that interested only philosophers, and most people and computer engineers hardly understand what the difference is between intelligence and consciousness. Even the people who are leading this development, you talk to them and they don't understand the difference between intelligence and consciousness. They often tell you, consciousness, what is it? We understand intelligence. I mean, I can show you in mathematical formula, this is intelligence. This is the algorithm that makes the AlphaGo work. But consciousness, what is it? We can't define it in a mathematical way. It's just an imagination. There is nothing like it. So this, I think, is one of the greatest challenges to humankind today.
그 대답에 제가 좀 덧붙여서 추가 질문을 좀 하고 싶은데요. 기계는 사실 인간 능력의 확장이죠. AI도 저는 인간 능력의 확장일 거라고 생각해요. 그런데 왜 저는 오히려 이제 역설적으로 말하는데 인문학적으로 질문을 던진다면 왜 사람들은 인간 능력의 확장에 불과한 이러한 기계를 인간을 대체할 그 무엇이라고 생각하느냐는 겁니다. 다시 말하면 그런 지능으로 환원될 수 없는 그 무엇, 예측할 수 없는 그 무엇들을 만들어내는 것이고 그것이야말로 저는 미래의 어떤 가능성이 아닐까라는 생각이 든다는 거죠. 거기에 대해서 이제 어떤 생각을 하시는지 궁금합니다.
Well, it's a difficult issue. Maybe I'll try to answer just one point. That you say, why fear that a machine, which is an extension, a creation of us, will take over? Because we've seen it previously in history, not with machines, but with other creations. We created gods, and then the gods took over us, and people start killing each other in the name of a god that they invented. We created nations, and then the nations took over, and we started killing each other for the national interest. We created corporations. They are just our creation. They are a fiction we've invented. And now these corporations, we are working for them. And they are determining the way that we live. And very soon, corporations may be owned and managed by AI. AI begins and people say, okay, it will be the manual laborer. Maybe the taxi driver will be an AI. Maybe the worker in the factory will be an AI. But already today, you have AI which make advice about how to spend money, how to invest money. Recently, for the first time, a financial trust in Hong Kong appointed an algorithm as a member of its directorate, as a member of the trust. There are 5 managers now to this trust. 4 of them are human. 1 of them is an AI, and it gets to vote on every decision this fund makes, whether to invest or not to invest in a particular company. Now, if the AI makes the best economic investments and predictions, then the corporation may fire the other humans. Oh, they are useless. They make wrong judgment. Maybe AI and algorithms will gain the same legal status. So an AI can own money, can own a corporation, can make decisions, can buy your house. You will rent your house from an AI, and if you don't pay the rent, the AI will hire a lawyer, maybe an AI lawyer, to sue you in court. From the gods, from the nations, from the corporations, in a way, we can still free ourselves if we really, really try. But from the AI, we will not be able to free ourselves because it will be much more intelligent than us.
한편으로는 동의를 하는데요. 빅데이터의 분석은 인간의 행동들을 굉장히 우리가 상상할 수 없는 것 차원으로 분석합니다. 아마 오바마 팀은 제가 미국의 유권자라면 제가 알고 있는 제 철을 저보다 훨씬 더 오바마 팀은 더 잘 알고 있을 테고 더 와이프에게 매혹적인 레터를 썼을 겁니다. 근데 동시에 저는 하라리 교수님께 동의하기가 어려운 게 오바마는 헬스케어에 대한 그 어떤 굉장히 위험스러운 결정을 했습니다. 헬스케어를 개혁하기로. 마치 알파고와 이세돌이 그 게임을 했을 때, 바둑 게임을 했을 때 이세돌이 던졌던 수, 전략적 계산을 하는 알파고라면 절대로 던지지 않았을 수를 이세돌은 던졌습니다. 오바마는 많은 측근들이 절대로 헬스케어 리폼을 하지 마라. 다 실패했으니까 대통령들이. 하지만 오바마는 헬스케어 리폼에 대한 승부수를 던졌죠. 그게 인간이 가지는 어떤 그 AI가, 아티피셜 인텔리전스가 할 수 없는 어떤 감수성, 미래에 대한 걱정, 지구에 대한 걱정, 혹시 이런 측면도 있는 거 아닐까? 그런 점에서 기업 국가화로만 설명할 수는 없지 않을까라고.
A human being is extremely different from an AI. And in many respects, it's far, far more advanced, especially when we think about consciousness and mind and emotions and feelings. But I don't know about the US president, but most jobs in the world require just a tiny amount of the real abilities of a human being. And if you again think about a taxi driver, what does the economic system need from a taxi driver? To take you from point A to point B as quickly, as cheaply, as efficiently as possible. And this is something you don't need emotions, you don't need consciousness for. If an AI can drive cheaply, more safely than a human being, the economic system will give the job to the AI. And we are already in a situation where we're very close to the point when millions and millions of drivers will lose their job because the AI does it better. Similarly, almost all other jobs in the world, whether even doctors and teachers, what you really need for them is a very limited part of their entire human potential. And this limited part can be done better by an AI than by a human being. Now, people sometimes think you cannot identify emotions and you cannot react accordingly unless you have emotions yourself. But we now know that this is not true. AI already today is outperforming humans in recognizing and reacting to human emotions. AI is now able to identify human emotions, whether you're angry or bored or joyful, by looking at your face and analyzing the movement of the muscles and the facial expression. And also AI is able to recognize emotions by following biometric data from the body, and even by just listening to the tone of your voice and analyzing the words you choose to use. And based on its immense databases on statistics, AI also learns how to react effectively to different human emotions. Now, humans very often identify your emotion and don't react appropriately. Like somebody is angry, and I just make the situation worse by shouting back and creating more and more anger. AI may be able to outperform humans even in that, without having any emotions of itself. People very often tend to impose their own agenda and their own fears or hopes on the reality they see. If they're pessimistic, then anything that happens, they will try to give it a spin that looks like it's very bad. Like artificial intelligence will kill all of us. And if they are optimistic, they'll try to give it a positive spin. That no, humans have a soul, humans have this or that artificial intelligence will never be able to understand or to overcome. And again, as a scientist, I try to find a middle way of what is reality, including the reality of our ignorance. If we don't know something, don't invent some story to fill the gap. Just say we don't know. We are presently in 2016 at a situation when we see that AI is becoming more and more intelligent, outperforming humans in more and more tasks that require intelligence. We don't know whether AI will be able to develop consciousness because we don't understand it. Maybe in 20 years, maybe in 40 years, we'll have an understanding, but now let's just admit our ignorance and leave the question open.
저희들은 이제 시간이 많이 지났기 때문에 서서히 결론 부분으로 가야 될 것 같습니다. 어떻게 풀어가야 될까 하는 문제입니다. 의식은 과연 이대로 좋을까? 정치는, 경제는, 교육제도는 이런 걸 우리 말씀을 좀 나눠주시면 좋겠습니다.
And when it comes to education and how to teach children and students, this maybe also is a very good lesson. In the educational system, we tend to be obsessive about answers and about certainties, not only as professors, but also as students. Like I go to my class and I raise some question and they started a discussion, and very soon some student will raise the hand and ask, okay, but what should I write in the test? What should I write in the exam? Tell us, what is the correct answer? We don't want all these questions and uncertainty. We want to know what to write in the exam so we will get a high mark. They want certainty. They want answers. Again, I don't know how to reform the educational system, but I think that we should teach students to live more comfortably, more peacefully, with uncertainty, with ignorance, with unanswered questions. The great advantage of science historically is that science is willing to admit ignorance. What started the Big Bang? We don't know. What is consciousness? We don't know. So maybe this is the most fundamental skill we can give to our students, is to have the courage to say we don't know. Well, I think I've talked far too much this evening, so for me now is the time for silence, and I will leave you with the closing remarks of my colleagues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.